Okay, so welcome to episode 4 of our interview series. Today we're joined by Neal Akhtar from Frenford Youth Club and Frenford FC. Neal, thanks for joining us.
That's all right, mate. No problem.
It's good to have you. Just mentioning just before we start recording that I think we've had some sort of involvement with you or known each other for about 7 years or so now. So I know there's some interesting projects that I'm sure you'll share with us that have been a long time in the making, but and lots of hard work that's gone into it. But it's been great to see that come to life over the last few years. So just as a quick introduction for anyone who's perhaps watching for the first time, I'm Andy Kroll, Coaching Development Officer at Essex County FA. I'm also joined by Lawrence Gower, who is involved with our coach education programme as well. So what we'll do, Neal, hand straight over to you. Just let us know if you need to sort of flick through the slides or whatever. And I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions as we go through, but I know you'll probably start by just sharing a bit of background and where the club's at and I suppose your coaching journey so far. So over to you.
All right, so I've been coaching for roughly 13 years altogether. Pretty much all that time's been at Frenford FC. I've started in the youth setup and gradually progressed through to the senior setup. I'm now head of youth football at Frenford and also a sports development officer there. Yeah, we'll start with that. We're going to get into it more later, aren't we? So. Right, so Frenford FC was established in roughly 1936. We have first team in Step 6, which is the Dunlow Nun League for us, First Division South. We've got 4 additional men's teams that include a team in the Essex Senior Reserves, an A team or third team who play in the Eastern Alliance, and they're really considered an under 23 team. We get a lot of youngsters through that setup. And then we also have a Sunday side. It's primarily for players that aren't selected to play on that Saturday, so they can have a game on the weekend at least. In addition, we've got 2 vets teams, a over 35s and over 45s, and 9 youth teams, which is 1 in each category, under 7s through to under 14s, and then 2 in the under 15s, and they all play in the Echo League. We also have 2 5-side women's teams played in a league called the Super 5 League, which takes place over in Mabley Green in Hackney. It's a 1-venue league and has about 40 teams associated with it. And then most recently, we also have a 11-a-side recreational women's team. Recreational because they play friendlies at the minute, primarily, with other clubs or other beginning teams. Prior to lockdown, we were developing an 11-a-side women's league, a flexi league, which we had 8 teams signed up to. We're developing in conjunction with the Super 5 and yourselves, actually.
Brilliant. Plenty going on there, then, Neal.
just a little bit.
As well as all the other hats that you wear as well. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So Frenford FC is it spins off the Frenford Youth Club. So Frenford Youth Club is a club that's founded in 1928. We primarily run recreational programming for young people, not only in sport, it's arts and educational activities as well. Such as music. We've got a music studio, there's public speaking workshops, leadership stuff, and it goes on. We make our facility also available for drop-in, which means a kid can just come along, pay £1, £2, use any of our facilities, provided they're free for however long they like. Our activities are used as an engagement tool or carrot that brings the young people into the club, where over time our youth workers can develop relationships with them and start identifying young people who may need additional help or guidance or access to our intervention programs. So in that regard, we deal with a lot of young people who could be at risk of getting involved in crime, for example, and we try to steer them on a more positive path.
Brilliant stuff.
Obviously, there's a bit of choppy video going on back there, so that's some of the activities we run going on. So yeah,
excellent.
And obviously the numbers are up there on the screen as to how many young people we get per month and year.
It's brilliant. I mean, I think it's probably the last 2-3 years we've started to utilise facilities for some of our education program over there as well, Neil. So
Yeah.
when we really appreciate you accommodating us amongst everything else, sort of sandwiching it in amongst all the other things that are going on. Some fantastic facilities and more on the way. And I think it just strikes me when you go down there and I know it's probably the intention anyways, it's just a hub for the community. And it feels like that. Anyone, I'm sure there'll be people that watch this that have been and visited for games or whatever it may be. But there is a feel as soon as you arrive that there's loads going on, and that there's that support around you, which is a great thing for young people to be involved in, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. We try to be that community hub for young people. There's not many youth clubs in Redbridge left. So we get a lot of people from all over the borough coming down, take part in activities, and half the activities are actually suggested by young people, so they're developed through their ideas and stuff, which we take on board and then work to develop programs in conjunction with them. So, yeah.
Brilliant to hear.
Well, it's definitely a hive of activity when you go. I mean, I've been a few times, and as soon as Andy said, as soon as you kind of turn up, you can see there's always lots going on, and it's great that it is very much a sports club, and you can see that it's not just a football club. Some people might recognise, obviously, they maybe play against the football teams, and obviously we are a football association, but it's just great to see there's so much engagement with all kinds of sports and all kinds of activity.
I think the most impressive thing when you go in, Neil, is your notice board behind the desks there. I get around that when I see it when I come in. There's an awful lot going on. I mean, obviously the numbers on the screen show that, but
Yeah.
there's all kinds of people, and you meet lots of people when you go down there, which is always, I suppose, the best part about the roles that we're all in. The people behind it. So the awkward bit next, I suppose, Neil, where you get to talk about yourself.
Yeah, this is my least favourite bit to do in anything. Always hate when you guys on every course makes you stand up and say who you are. That's something you need to change. Anyway, so my role within the club, I'm the sports development officer and fundraiser. So I help to create, develop and amend programs alongside the management team, as well as ensuring that the coaches that are in my programs are properly vetted and supported in their development and the activities I lead. I'm also the head of youth football, which currently has about 300 to 400 young people attending through, not only through teams, through our recreational sessions and drop-in activities as well.
Yeah.
You can go to the next one, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, so where am I on? I've got lost here.
You skipped one there.
You skipped one, didn't you? Yeah.
What's that?
I think you skipped one forward.
Oh, no, sorry. Apologies.
I thought you knew this, Andy. What happened? Anyway, so this slide relates back to my work in the youth club and the role. It's just to highlight partnership work. So partnership work forms an important part of what we do as a charity, because the youth club is a charity side. What we like to do is we engage with other organisations within the borough to help a wider range of the community. Even though we're a youth club, we want to give access to those people who typically wouldn't be involved with sport. So we do a lot of work with other organisations that can tap into more harder to reach areas. So our female team was developed in conjunction with another organisation called MSA, or Muslim Sports Association. It's an organisation founded by a lady called Yasmin, who began it to encourage more women from Islamic backgrounds to get into sport and provide the opportunities for them to do that. This bit of partnership work came about because we were delivering female football ourselves for women aged between 13 and 16 years of age, but we're finding that some women over the age of 16 also wanted to attend, and we didn't have anything to cater for them. Through our relationship with MSA, we had this desire to bring our sections together, because they were running a couple recreational sessions in Loxford and other areas, and we thought we would provide an opportunity for those that wanted to take football further to do so, whereby the original desire was to form an 11-a-side team. We realised that'd be a bit difficult off the bat, so we developed 2 smaller 5-a-side teams to start with, and brought them into the work I was doing with Super 5. Because many of these young ladies had never played football in a league-based format before. Obviously, we had 1 team to start with. We enrolled them in, and that's now grown to 2 teams, 8 players spread out, 8 players per team, so 16 women involved with that. And then we've got the recreational 11-a-side team that has members from those teams coming together, and a few additional.
It's a fantastic organisation to work on. So I obviously know Yasmin from some other partnership work that we've done in the past, and I remember just first meeting her with a colleague, Nick, and she's quite a force to be reckoned with, and she's very passionate about sport, the power of sport, in her community, and just some of the work, is worth taking a look, particularly if you're in the local area. Just the projects and the different programs they've got going on, vast, and there's so much choice.
See, and that's where an organisation like ours can help. An organisation like hers, she's done the work. She's got into reach out to the community and stuff and helped bring people in. And then we've obviously got this facility and stuff, and where we can support that by providing that facility at low to no cost. It sustains it.
Mm. Is there a plan or somewhere along the line to have more in terms of the female football, so more of a pyramid, if you like, or a pathway?
So the pathways into 11-a-side teams we hope to have running here in leagues that are already established. We will start with a flexi league, a recreational league, but over time we want that to develop into a league where our women are okay to travel, like the men's game, basically, like how our men's teams do at the minute. At the moment, it's all one venue stuff that they're comfortable with, but over time, we think that will develop.
Excellent. No, there's some great work going on there, and I suppose if people check out website as well, we can post it perhaps in the notes on the recording, and people can see the other work that's going on with yourselves and MSA, because I think that'd be really good for people to have a look at. I'd back over to you.
All right, so this slide is basically a wrap back around my football journey. I came to football quite late myself. I used to like watching it, but I didn't play it. So I came to really in high schools when I started developing. I found the game and started enjoying it. It was playing on a recreational basis. Couldn't get into school teams or anything. It wasn't very good. But once I started playing it, I couldn't stop. I wanted to play it all the time. That led to me getting involved with Frenford Football Club to start with. I was part of their 3rd and 4th team back when I was 16 years old. Played there for a little while, but I'll be honest, and the experience I had there wasn't the greatest. At the time, we weren't as welcoming as we are in terms of young players and people who were developing in the game. It was more based on either you can play or you can't. If you can't play, we're not really going to select you. We're not going to help you out or anything like that. Off you go. Like I suppose a lot of football clubs still are. You've got that winning mentality, and the higher up you go, it's obviously more vicious. But this was in a 3rd and 4th team, for example. So I unfortunately left the club. I went to find other football where I could play. I ended up going to a couple of places, but the one that stuck out with me was Leytonstone United Football Club, where I had 2 coaches over there, Barry and Macca, who, they saw I had a raw ability, and they saw I could play a bit of football, because I was primarily a 5-a-side player, not an 11-a-side player. And they had patience, and they developed me as a player, and I came on quite a bit with them, I like to think. They forgave mistakes. They took the time to explain what was going wrong. what I could do to work on the different aspects of my game and stuff like that. And it's something that I carried through with me, and why I wanted to get involved in coaching. It was one of the biggest influences I had in my life. So then it goes back to the youth club. I was still associated with the youth club, and I ended up getting involved with their coaching program at 16, 17, just assisting sessions and things like that. Actually, we've been later than that. Probably about 18, 19, getting involved with the coaching setup. And over time, I've basically stuck at it and helped develop their recreational sessions, which was, at one point, I was running by myself. There was 30 kids split across 2 pitches, and this is before all the safeguarding rules came in properly, Andy. I was running between 2 pitches to organise sessions and keeping an eye on them and things like that before we knew better. Yeah, and then basically from that we've grown the club and developed teams of the recreational programs and splintered off in all different areas, and eventually we've brought together the Frenford Football Club and the Frenford Youth Club back to how it was, because we were kind of going 2 different ways, and now it's being slowly melded back into one entity.
What drove that initially, Neil? That when you went into coaching, what was it that initially kind of drove that? Because I know obviously you was playing and you was involved in football. What kind of made you want to get into that coaching side?
So there's a couple of things really. One of them was just injury. I was getting injured quite a bit, so at times I wanted to start doing coaching. The other major factor was my dad. My dad was he passed away. He passed away back in 2006 or so, and he was involved in the club, in the youth club. He was on the management committee. He was helped with the accounts and things like that at the time, and I just wanted to follow in his footsteps a bit and do a bit of voluntary work for the club. Ended up falling in love with it, and yeah, not leaving really.
Now you can't get out.
now, yeah.
You're well and truly part of the foundations there now. Great stuff. Just we've spoken with, I think, all 3 of our guests about this so far, about experience and hours on the grass, if you like, actually doing it. Now, you know, it doesn't go for everybody, but we have seen in previous years, and perhaps in the sort of the older coaching pathway, people perhaps that kind of badge collecting approach, which, you know, understandable, and people who perhaps don't know the full ins and outs of it, that's what they're looking to do because they aspire to move on to other things. But I think we find that, you know, that you will get found out in a way further down the line if you haven't got those hours under your belt. So you were saying about, you know, having groups of probably too many, really, when you actually look at it now. And I've certainly had similar experiences in the past where you just chucked in. It's like, right, there's some stuff, just deal with it. But those experiences really do shape you as a coach, don't they? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, without those, I probably wouldn't be. I'm half decent coach. I wouldn't be as good as I am today. It's how you adapt and adjust, and what you can do on the fly at times. And you know, I know it's frowned upon, but those kind of things really did help shape how I'm able to deal with large numbers or smaller numbers now. I'm going off a bit.
I think we've all been there. We've all had those situations. I mean, I've been in situations where we've had loads of kids to cope with, but as Andy said, you know, it's all kind of the pieces that fit together and kind of build you as a coach. And it was interesting that you said, you know, you hadn't played, you know, much as a youngster, and you wasn't, you know, massively, I suppose, into football growing up as a child, maybe. And I think that's another kind of almost a misconception that, you know, perhaps people think that, you know, coaches have been playing for many years or playing at a professional level or semi-professional or whatever, when realistically, it's those people skills, and it's those skills that you've mentioned, you know, that can shape a coach and that become a lot more important.
Yeah, and the biggest is of course the ability to and the want to learn and develop yourself. And if you haven't got that, then you know, some people, I've experienced them, some coaches, they come on board and they think they know the game already, and they don't have that willingness to take other people's ideas on board to develop themselves. And I think that's selling yourself short a bit. But
yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I think we'll. I think I can see some of this coming back around a bit further on in the conversation. But I left this one up on the screen, so I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, this is a brief slide just to show what teams I was coaching currently. So I've done two teams last season. The under-9s, which is the foundation years, and I did the senior team, which is the senior thirds, the under-23s, the A team, help with the coaching in there for that season. But then I'm also coaching across all different age groups to help out sessions when and where needed.
Brilliant.
Two ends of the scale there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the best way to be, in all honesty. It keeps you sharp at both.
Yeah, definitely.
Sides,
Yeah.
you know. But, anyway, this slide here is priorities in general as from my youth football side of things. The senior side has a more extensive list, but this is what we want to get right to start with. So we look first and foremost to create the right environment for our players. It's probably one of the biggest factors for us. It permeates through everything we do as a organisation. You know, we need to create an environment where players and participants feel welcome and where they want to return to, where they would be comfortable staying for a few hours even before and after sessions. A lot of this is done by getting the right coaches on board, the right staff who are able to build relationships with young people and support them appropriately. Many of our coaches have not only done FA qualifications, but they've done supplementary stuff, like they've gone to youth work courses, they've done mental health first aid certificates, you know, and it just all complements their other learning, and I think it helps build a right environment for the players and participants.
It's something that we would always advocate, and likely a topic of some conversations we've got coming up around that coach support, coach development, and just looking outside of just football, because, you know, in relation to what's out there, what we can offer is actually quite minimal, and that contact time is, you know, maybe only 3.5, 4 days on a level 1, and then 10 days plus a couple of visits on the level 2. So actually, in the grand scheme of things, the amount of time they're actually out there doing it and learning your trade, there's so much more that you can do. So the stuff that you've mentioned there, places like UK Coaching, Youth Sport Trust, local authorities often run a lot of things that people aren't even aware of. So I think anything where you can tap into those other resources is going to be beneficial, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to opportunity for all. So football is obviously a sport that's not exclusive. It's a sport that brings people together and should be celebrated as such. You know, and so we as a club want to provide opportunities for those that have never had that opportunity to play the game regularly, to do so, to provide a service that, you know, that retains people in the game. So even if they're outgrowing sessions, for example, or they don't want to play in teams anymore, there's still programs there to facilitate them. I mean, our recreational programming, for example, sees young people attend who otherwise would no longer play the game. You know, these are young people who don't have friends that play it. They can't cobble together 10 players to come to get a 5-side game going, and they're young people who otherwise might be socially isolated from the sport. Obviously, our recreational programming allows them to drop in and play for £2 at a time, whatever. And, you know, it's similar to the Just Play programs that the FA does, I think. I think you do it for youngsters as well, don't you? Just Play?
It's generally kind of 16 plus, but there's other projects and programs similar that are out there.
And obviously, the last thing is ensuring learning objectives through selection and creation of the right practices for the individuals involved. This really comes down to the coaching pathway and how we want our coaches to develop themselves, which we'll go into, I guess.
Brilliant.
So sorry, I missed that bit. The coaching development. So, do you want me to start on that?
Yeah, but I'm curious to, because it all links anyway, doesn't it? Just curious to hear how this, I suppose, a whistle-stop tour of how it all came about and where it's gone, because I think it's been quite some time in the making now, hasn't it?
It has indeed. So we started back in, when did we move here? Moved to this site in 2010. I was the sole coach at that point, doing recreational programming. Since that time, we've managed to get coaches on board. We don't have much success getting on parents at the minute. So we're not like other football clubs where parents drop in and start running teams and things. Where our coaches tend to come from is young people, and youngsters want to get involved on the coaching aspect of the game. What typically happens is a young person will come up to us, get involved in voluntary basis with myself. At the start, it was they basically come and assist with sessions and things like that. And over time, we'd help develop them and gradually put more and more responsibility onto them, align to your courses and things. And by the end of it, they're developing themselves, taking responsibility for their own learning and wanting to create their own sessions, which are offshoots of the original one. So the teams and stuff start naturally. What's the word? The coaches naturally want to start running their own team, so they come to us and start, recruiting players on their own and things like that, and then it just all, just evolves like that, really.
Mm. Sounds really positive in terms of, obviously using the younger volunteers, and I think it's often overlooked with a lot of clubs, as you mentioned. A lot we use parents or we'll ask parents at least, and that can often be overlooked, that there are so many youngsters and so many young people who might want to get involved in football or want to get involved in coaching or just want to work with young people. And I suppose it comes back to that they don't necessarily have to be, well experienced in the game, or they don't necessarily have to be players or anything like that. They can be young people with certain skills that can be developed, who can, really help and really assist football clubs to grow and sustain. But it's great that obviously you found that method to work for you, and it'll be, I think that's a really good message for other clubs out there, that could be something you're overlooking. That could be a potentially untapped workforce.
Yeah, I mean, even just if they begin by doing some assisting, you kind of mentioned it already, Neil. I think that being relatable to the people that you're coaching is obviously really important, but you see it in some clubs where they have some young people perhaps alongside a parent coach, and that dynamic works well as well, because there's maybe that person with a bit more experience, perhaps from a parenting, behaviour, whatever it may be, point of view or organisational point of view, but then the young person who's got that better connection or more of a connection with the people that they're coaching. I think that dynamic can work really, really well. There's many clubs that do it and do it well, but I think your club would be quite unique in perhaps the numbers that you deal with from that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of young people coming down wanting to be involved in coaching, and sometimes they don't really, they're involved in the game, so they're playing for our teams or on a recreational basis, and then it's through our youth work primarily where they're engaged and this relationship is formed, and then other suggestions get put to them. A lot of young people who are at risk, for example, get shown, get put on. Well, it's not shown. I don't know how to say it really. They get casually, I'll say shown. They get shown to a voluntary program. So a volunteering program which helps to develop them and bring them back away from that at-risk behaviour. So it gets them more involved with the club and off the street primarily. Yeah. And by doing that, we have the love of the game, which we're using as a tool. We're having them develop themselves as leaders. And when you give someone that much time and responsibility and make them feel good about themselves, they want to keep coming. They keep coming, and they're willing to develop themselves. And yeah,
great
it just grows
message.
naturally from that.
Great message for coaches as well. I think that because it all relates, doesn't it? You know, give people your time, or give the people, children, whoever you're coaching, the time. Listen, engage them, involve them in decision making process. You mentioned earlier on about the youth club, and a lot of the foundation of that is built on the voice of the people that are the members. So that the children, the young people in your case, are actually taking on board their wants and needs within reason, obviously, because budgets or staffing or whatever it may be. But if you bring that into a coaching dynamic, take your under 9s team, for example, just giving them a bit of a voice, asking them what things do they like to do, what do you understand by this. There's loads of coaching lingo out there, but is it adult lingo? Is it stuff that you've just heard? Is it because you like to watch the game, or is it, and we speak about this a lot on courses and workshops, but I think it's an important point for you to consider, is just where they're at as a bunch of 8-year-olds. What do they understand? What's their world look like? Their perspective is completely different to us. And there's certain things that you want to get done, and there's time constraints and things, and everyone has that. But having their voice can shape most of what you do.
Yeah, ownership of sessions is a massive part for me. For me personally, I don't know about other coaches here, but for me personally, in terms of my under 9s team, I like to give them responsibility in our sessions, and I like them to suggest things for what they want to work on and things like that as well, rather than me set out a plan to follow and that's it. Their input is incredibly valuable, and it helps build a more gel team overall.
Excellent. So Neal, I'm just obviously thinking about time, and I know you've given up your time here, and I'm sure you've got plenty to do. Just with regards to the coach mentor program, I know you've got it up on there. Just I suppose how that came about and where that's gone so far. I know there's a lot of there's a lot in there, but just an overview of how that came about and perhaps where it's got to so far.
Yeah, so I went over to this network at the time. It's called the East London Coaches Network, that the FA were running. Through there, I met a guy called Steve Smithies, and I explained to him that I could only do so much to help these coaches develop. And at the time, I was like a level 2 coach, and I'd done a few youth mobs and stuff, but I wasn't much of a mentor and things. I wasn't too sure how to help develop these coaches further than I already had. He suggested that the FA had a FA coach mentoring program, put me in touch with Cindy over the Essex FA, and through that, she helped assign Ian to us, Ian Fleming, who's your FA coach mentor. And he's been a massive help in terms of he'll come down to sessions where I'm focusing on my team. He's able to walk around, dip in and out of other people's sessions, make notes and stuff, and offer them guidance and advice at the end of them. And then he's also there to. He's also been working with me to develop the club as a whole in terms of the philosophy, our coaching pathway, and things like that. So yeah, it's all a work in progress, but it's been a massive help, in all honesty.
What's been the sort of key, not to put on the spot too much, what's the sort of key successes? Because I think the beauty of the mentor program is that it can be quite subtle, and obviously there's not a rush, and it can't be if it can't be effectively done quickly.
No.
But what's the key things been for you?
So with us, it hasn't happened quickly at all. So our coaches originally, Ian was coming down, and he only saw small increment of improvement each week usually. To try and increase that, increase the amount the coaches getting out of it, we collaborated to create a coaching syllabus based around the FA coaching pathway. So we created a syllabus around our foundation age groups and our development age groups, and we started delivering that message to our coaches through meetings every month and things like that, and started emphasising the importance of plan to review, and especially the review part, the evaluating about what went well, what didn't, and what they would change next time. And through that, over time, it has become a lot better. So the coaches are buying into it. They're planning sessions appropriately, reviewing them well, and seeking out advice. They're not, before sometimes they ran a session, they said it didn't go too well, and then they'd just forget about it. But now they link in with each other a bit more in terms of what went well, what didn't, and then they work off of one another to get ideas as to how they could change the session, what they could do differently.
That's the best part. I think just sparking those conversations, the fact that the role of coach mentor isn't to be there on their shoulder constantly. It's just it like you said, it's dip in and out. It's support. It's just another listening ear sometimes. It might be more direct guidance if required, but generally it's just, well, I'm thinking this. What do you think? And that's the whole thing. And if people can do that off on their own, great. Regardless of whether it's 2 under-8s coaches or an under-8s and an under-15, people would have been through in anybody listening to this, if they've got multiple teams in the youth age groups, there would have been someone who's experienced something similar at some point. And just sparking those conversations or building into your coaches or managers meetings some time to talk about coaching, because interestingly, a lot of them have that title of coach, but the actual time invested in speaking about coaching is either minimal or non-existent, having sat in many club meetings. And it's, there are other things to sort out, like who hasn't put the goals away properly and funding or whatever it may be, but actually having a conversation about coaching, even if just introduced in a very small part to begin with, then it starts to put the players at the centre of everything again.
Yeah, I've got to admit, that's probably what Ian's brought most to the table, really. I mean, we're probably guilty of that as well. My meetings were around everything else bar coaching, like 5 minutes on coaching, and now it's like a meeting every month just purely on the topic of what are we doing for our players, how are we getting the most of our sessions for them. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Excellent stuff. So I mean, there's some topic areas just to pick up, if you don't mind, to end with. We've done a lot of questions. I still wanted to put your image up there because they're fantastic images. So we'll keep that there for a moment. So I mean, there's just 3 topic areas where we'll fly through. I think some of it will link to what we've been talking about already, but just some trying to keep on the coaching theme, I suppose. So I don't know if one of you wanted to kick off. Yeah, sure. So I mean, it was interesting what you're saying there about the the kind of regular meetings with coaches, and it seems that you've almost got kind of a coaching community put together there, amongst your club, which is great, as opposed to some might have a tendency to branch off, and it might be that you only see the coaches every now and then or whatever. So that's really positive. What we'd be interested to kind of speak about, I guess, is your own coaching pathway. So obviously you mentioned that you have mental support for your other coaches, and that they go through the level 1 qualification and maybe more. But what about yourself? So what was your coaching pathway? Where did you kind of begin, and where are you up to now?
Yeah, so I like to think I have quite a similar pathway to these young coaches coming on board now, whereby I was coaching initially without qualifications and stuff like that back in the day, and then I actually put off the level 1 and stuff for a long while. I was like, what's it going to teach me? I had that kind of attitude around it, and then I went on the level 1, realised it had quite a bit of value. And then from that point on, I was like, okay, I want to start following this pathway and start getting involved and learning a bit more. I think as coaches, sometimes you are at the risk of thinking you know it all, or you know a lot, and you have to be open to new ideas, and that's something that I came to realise early on. So I went from the old style level 1 to the old style level 2, which was a lot different or I hear it's a lot different to the new one, where it's all a command-based approach, do this, do that, stop, stand still, and that was how you were taught to coach, basically. And it was quite a tense process. It was like a pass or fail at the end and everything. So, and through the course, I don't know if I was ready for it yet or not. I was at the start. The tutor at the time came up to me and he said that you're just setting up drills. You're not coaching, and that comment stuck with me. And that's probably pushed me on to try and understand what coaching is. How can I shape these players and stuff? But in that regard, also, he just wanted me to do stop, stand still. So got through that, and then went on to youth modules about 6 months after, or 6 or 7 months after doing the level 2, and then they totally contradicted everything I learned on the level 2. And I was like, okay, not stop, stand still, I've got to be doing this. So it was all a bit confusing at the time. And I think it's all been merged and amalgamated into something that is actually cohesive, really. I preferred the youth modules to the level 2. It was more about guiding the player and helping the player learn and all that stuff. Whereas level 2 was just, my mind was just a technical course at the time.
Yeah.
Did you understand the techniques in football? Can you explain them appropriately? So gone through the youth modules, which I found an enjoyable experience. Then got into UEFA B, fortunately. Was that last year we did it? Last year. Yeah, so that was, I mean, that I know it's hard to come by, that course, but that course probably provided one of the biggest leaps in my coaching to where I was before, in terms of thinking. Lawrence was on that course, so you'll probably share this experience.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a huge leap. You're absolutely right.
And all the detail around units and individuals within those units and things like that, and designing sessions to best guide them and working with a striker, for example. What kind of different sessions can you do whilst all the other players are involved and active and getting something at the session as well? I think that UEFA B was a fantastic course. Just unfortunate that you can't deliver too many, can you?
No, it's a bit of a frustration. I mean, I think one thing that comes out, and we started to run some tasters, if you like, bridging workshops for those that are aspirations to go on to do UEFA B level 3. And I think a lot of people, part of that process is just educating on what that coaching pathway now looks like and what's involved. And some people are absolutely good to go. Others, you would have found it on the course that you're on. Others, maybe it was more challenging, or they hadn't been exposed to much of that content before, depending on what experiences and pathway they've been through previously. And it's a challenge, because obviously, as you know, there's quite a bit of work involved. And
on that, I would say that I mean, I didn't rush my qualifications. So I mean, the youth mod is probably the youth mod 1 was probably the quickest time I spent between qualifications. It was 7 months or something down the line from the level 2. But apart from that, I was adamant of taking what I learned from the course, implementing it in my coaching as much as I could. Obviously doing supplementary reading and things like that as well around football. But trying to be the best coach at that level, like I think you guys advocate as well. Try to be the best coach at that level before moving on. So until I reached a point where I thought I need a bit more now, I need to up my game a little bit, I didn't really seek to apply for the UEFA B until I thought I was at that point.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And when was it that you did your level 1, Neil? How long ago was that roughly?
Mate, now you're showing my age, aren't you?
It's a while ago.
It's a while ago. It's probably 2007, 2008. So
okay, yeah. So I mean, that's fairly similar to myself. In that, when you look at that kind of timeline from starting out coaching, and as you say, going on to the level 2, and then exploring the youth modules, and then moving on to the level 3. Between those kind of breaks of qualifications or courses, you've obviously had plenty of time to kind of compound that learning and really put that into practice, and as you've said, be the best coach at that level before being ready to move on. And I think that's a really vital point for coaches, that it really is about working with that knowledge that you have and using that, and really making sure that you feel you are well equipped at that level, and you're at a stage where you're ready to move on, as opposed to maybe thinking that you've just got to kind of move as quickly as possible. I mean, funny enough, I did the youth modules and the old level 2, so similar to you, and I did them almost at the same time. So I did the level 2, and then whilst I was in the break between the level 2 and the assessment, I did a youth module. I did the first youth module, and that was, as you mentioned, really contradicting, and incredibly, I loved the youth modules and I took so much from them. And then I went back to kind of do my assessment for the level 2, and just felt this is really, I feel, this is really strange. As you said, you're kind of just, you're putting on a session, you're almost acting out, you're putting on a session, just so that you can kind of tick a box. Whereas the youth modules, there's so much more in terms of creating environments and developing players. So yeah, I hear you on that one. That was an interesting time, but it's definitely changed.
Yeah, it's changed an awful lot. I think it's the other thing is, I do understand and we appreciate the frustrations that are out there as well, because obviously everyone's journey is different and they come to it, their starting points vary hugely. It might have been involved in another sport from a playing or coaching capacity, or it might be something to do with their life, their job, their career, whatever it is that they bring to the party, if you like, already. So they have a good base. And I think it can be frustrating, particularly if you're really passionate and it's something that you really want to do. I suppose all we can say is yes, or in relation to the amount of people that want to do it, the opportunities are fairly limited, but there's also a whole load of information and content and support that people don't perhaps tap into, which is not just Essex FA or the FA, but there's a lot of other stuff out there. It's just coaching as a profession, as a sector, is huge, and there's so much to it. And it goes way beyond four corners and the things that we speak about on the courses. There's a whole lot of depth to it and specific areas of coaching that you can delve into, and that will depend on the environment you're working in and different things. So I think if anyone, I suppose a word of advice, if people aren't sure or that they only see the courses as their next thing, then have a conversation with us, and it might be that it's right for you, but equally it might be that there's other things that you could be doing in the meantime. Because like any of these sorts of things, there is only a limited number of opportunities from a kind of qualification point of view. So Neil, just moving on to the next bit around coaches and volunteers. I mean, you've alluded to it a couple of times. I'm just curious around that recruitment of, I know, predominantly young coaches that come through. How does that come about? So do you identify people as having a certain skill set, or is it generally those that come to you and then you say, yeah, we'll give you a hand?
So we advertise out obviously for coaches, all different avenues, and often we get young people coming on board through them. Other times they're identified through the club as people who could benefit from a leadership program, which is what we class it as. I mean, that's how we get them on board, and then it's a matter of them delivering sessions, learning in them, and the ones that take to it stay on, and you find they're keen to get involved, and then you start supplementing their learning with the courses and your knowledge, really. But a lot of it nowadays, because we got such a what's the word? We got a lot of people showing up. It's word of mouth, It's people identifying others to come down and start coaching. Yeah, that's it really.
one of the most powerful tools, isn't it?
Word of mouth, exactly. I mean, I used to struggle for coaches. I used to struggle to get anyone on board, and I'd have to advertise everywhere and put up notices, all different forums and stuff. And nowadays, it's more. Once you start establishing yourselves, you find that people start showing up and wanting to give you a hand.
I think people are enjoying the experience naturally, you know, much like players. That one, they'll stay, but two, they'll get other people involved as well. So that, I suppose, it goes right back to the very building blocks of making sure the environment's right, like you said earlier on.
Exactly that.
You know, like we've mentioned, you go along and you feel like you're part of something, and there's support mechanisms in place, and you won't feel silly if you make a mistake. That environment is.
Well, that's the biggest thing. The mistakes. You've got to be willing to accept them, not get on the coach's back and stuff, and you know, just help them through it. Any kind of mistakes that they make. Don't jump in, intervene in sessions, see how they recover first, and then and then just guide them into tweaking things and making changes rather than coming over and taking over. You know,
that's coaching.
That is coaching.
Well, someone said that's coaching. So there's just one more point. I think, Lawrence, you're going to run through this one.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, just on that last point, I mean, it's a good place to be, obviously. And I'm sure, you know, Penny will say, you know, oh, it's great that you know, you've got volunteers that almost come to you. But I think it's just really important to point out that that's based on, you know, so much work that's gone in beforehand. Yeah. And that you mentioned that, you know, you've kind of built those foundations over so much time that now it's almost organic. So that's, you know, that's such a great example. But yeah, I mean, just in terms of the club, and in terms of Frenford as a youth club and a football club, you know, obviously there's some developments going on there at the ground that we spoke about, you know, previous to this, and you mentioned about the, you know, the kind of women's section potentially growing. What's the kind of goals and maybe some aspirations of the club? Where do you kind of see it going, or is there any certain direction you'd like to see it go?
Well, in terms of the youth section, we're looking to get 2 teams in every age group, just because of demand as well from players, and you know, we're going to have a fantastic facility here. There's going to be a 11-a-side AstroTurf pitch, which is being built currently. Just want to make the most of those facilities. So getting more young people involved in the actual team-based games, that'll be that's what we aspire to do. We're in an area where traditionally we have a lot of South Asian participants who traditionally haven't been involved in football. So getting them involved in these team opportunities is probably one of our biggest goals, and it's something we've accomplished quite well. And we are seeking to push that forward a bit more.
I suppose the facilities are you know, obviously going to be a big kind of selling point, I suppose, for the club, in terms of attracting maybe new faces to football, or people that you mentioned, you know, maybe you wouldn't perhaps see usually.
It's going to be it's going to be a brilliant facility. I mean, there's a stadia there, and yeah, I think when people see that, they'll want to get involved.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the women's setup, we aspire to have an 11-side team playing regularly. We also aspire to have our Flexi League up and running, 11-side Flexi League, for those that can't commit to matches every week or whatever. You know, something that provides the opportunity for them to get involved and stay involved in the game in a larger format.
Mm. I think that flexibility side of it is, you mentioned a couple of times, and I think leagues, clubs, different organisations are kind of triggering onto that now, is that the offer perhaps needs to be different, you know, depending on where you're based and all the other kind of things. But just looking at life as it is, modern life, and you know, people's shift patterns are all over the place, and there's, you know, just that 24-hour culture almost. There's got to be an offer there, isn't there, that's different perhaps from tradition.
Mm. Exactly. That's what I agree with that. I mean, we've been shouting about this for ages in terms of providing that flexible approach to the games and things, because not everyone can commit to a season of football. those that can't commit to coming down to training, for example, and they don't get picked for a match where they might want to just play, you know, and have the opportunity to play competitively. Yeah.
So, Lawrence, do you have any more questions for now?
No, I mean, I think it's really interesting to hear that, you know, as you say, I suppose it's more of a community than anything. And you know, it is that hub, and it's you know, there's lots going on, and it's so much more than just providing football to a select few. And as you say, you know, that offer is maybe slightly different to other clubs, but it's definitely, I think it's definitely a way forward, and it's definitely something that maybe more clubs can start to aspire to. In that, you know, the more that you offer, the more flexible you can be. You know, the more variations of the game that you can offer, the more sports that you can offer. It's so much more beneficial to that community than just a football club that, you know, just a few teams playing on a Sunday. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just great to hear, and it's great to see that the club taking that direction. It's really positive.
Yeah, it'd be a shame not to, given our facility and everything. We have to be providing those kind of services, saying, you know, the club is built in a way where you can provide a service for young people while at the same time have their parents off doing a session somewhere else in the club. So it's but anyway, we'll leave it there.
Yeah, I think I'll end with a congratulations. I think, Neil, just for all the work that's gone into it, yourself and others. I know you're, you know, Mr. Frenford, if you like. Everyone, you know,
one of them. There's about 4 of us.
You can see that you're there now, and it's, you know, part of the furniture. But there's so much that's gone on behind the scenes, and just testament to all the work that's gone in by yourself and others within the club. So I appreciate your time, because I know you're very, very busy. Just put up on the screen there some contact details. From a coaching point of view, obviously we use at Essex Coaches on Twitter. So if anyone wants to get involved, or see key updates from ourselves with resources, session plans, whatever it may be, or just key updates from County FA, they're all added on there. Neil, thanks again for your time, much appreciated, and we'll hope to see you soon, perhaps when the facility's up and running.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Right.
See you soon.
Bye bye.